Welcome to Mini Fights. I'm your host Brian, and today I'm playing Charles. We're playing the secure mission Deadly Meteors Mutate Civilians and Skrulls Infiltrate World Leadership. To get things started, Charles is going to double advance his Black Panther onto the right side. Now, there's two sets of objectives on top of each other, and he's kind of trying to figure out which one he wants to interact with at this point. Ultimately, he decides that he wants to interrogate the civilian that's on that point, and fails to find the Skrull. And you can see that those are his dice there. He needs to roll a crit to find the Skrull. Back to me. My Captain America is going to activate. Advance to the center point and heroically attempt to defuse the center bomb. Now each of those 3 points has a civilian on it that may or may not be a Skrull, and it has an origin bomb. So Cap is going to roll his energy defense here, and he needs to roll at least one hit to succeed in controlling the bomb. Now that the roll on that is going to go up as more enemies crowd around the bomb, so it's harder to capture when there's enemies around it. That ends Cap's activation. Back to Charles. Charles' Dark Captain America is going to mirror the good guy counterpart, double advancing and attempting to reactivate the bomb. He's going to roll his 3 energy defense dice here, and he's going to need to get 2 successes. 4 energy defense dice, and he does get 2 successes. Back to me. Black Widow's going to sprint forward with a double advance to that center point and interrogate the civilian. Now, she can tell immediately that there's something fishy about the civilian and arrest them as a Skrull agent. So Widow's got the Skrull, but she is way far forward on the center line. Charles sees that. He's going to activate his crossbones. He's going to lumber towards Widow with a double advance, because he is unfortunately out of range for his range 2 attack on her. So here comes the second move. So he's just going to stand there and basically set up for the following round, knowing that she has the Skrull agent. That's worth 2 victory points. Now my Ak is going to scramble forward and attempt to interact with the bomb. And because of Black Panther's presence, this is going to be a lot more difficult. So it ends up being a 3 dice with 2 successes needed, which I believe is about a 50% chance to hit it. And he gives it a shot, and he fails. And takes a little damage too because of that, and rolled that skull. Now Imposter Ak is going to advance forward. And he decides to stop where he's at and strike the legitimate Ak. My Ak. Of course he's the legitimate one. And after we do a little math here, ends up doing no damage. Now back to my side. My unlikely ally, Killmonger, is going to advance forward here. Now I'm trying to figure out if he could do a charge directly into Cap without having to spend an action point moving first. Doesn't look like it's going to work out, so he's just going to walk to there, spend his second action doing a charge. Now this is something that really only works in a Avengers list because of the discount on superpowers, but it's pretty effective. So he's going to charge into Dark Cap with his vibranium weapons. It's his free attack, his strike, if you will. And it's generally a pretty solid attack. But it doesn't usually do this. So yeah, who needs skill with dice of this magnitude, right? He rolls almost all hits on all the dice, including a couple, I think it was 3 crits total. So long story short, he just one-shots Cap with his 0 cost attack. So that happens. Killmonger usually kills a lot of stuff, but that was that was an exceptional turn on his part. Dazes the Dark Cap. Iron Man's going to double advance on this left side here, capture that bomb on the left. See, he rolled the success he needed. And end his activation, he's done. Last activation on my team is my Danvers, who's kind of been playing sort of the left point and the middle point here. Not sure which way she was going to end up going. She has to react to that. In my opinion, she has to go take that back if she can. She has really high energy defense, so I think pretty good odds on it. So she's going to move forward there. And I'm just kind of checking placement of his Iron Man. End up flying over the top and kind of wedging myself against the building. Besides kind of getting some cover from the Coke machine there, that also keeps her from getting repulsored off of the point later on, in theory at least. So that was kind of the plan there. And she attempts to cap it, and she does. When I say cap it, I mean captures the bomb. She did roll a skull though, and ended up taking a point of damage. Looks like the round's ended here. We're kind of talking it out and making sure we're counting the points correctly. So I've got the scroll, and because of Danvers' last second capture of that left bomb, Charles does not have a majority, and neither do I. We both have 1, so nobody scores that. So the score is going to be 2-0 to me. And back to Charles. Start of round 2 here. His Dark Captain America is going to strike my Black Widow, who's holding the scroll, and she's going to take 2 damage despite her martial arts prowess at close range. She's going to use a counterattack, superpower, just to try to put a little damage back on him. Ends up just whiffing entirely, unfortunately. And his second action point, he's going to actually throw his shield at her at very close range. And this is going to end up dealing her last 2 damage to her and dazing her. She's going to end up dropping the Skrull agent next to the Dark Cap, and he's going to scoop him up. So, my Killmonger, he had pretty good luck the first time around, so we're going to try this again. Time to do a couple of interesting things here. So I'm going to play the Tactics card, Usurp the Throne, and then charge into him. Now, Usurp the Throne is going to give me a couple extra dice on Cap, because he's the most expensive model in the list. You get to kind of pick the most expensive if there's a tie. With the charge, he's going to end up rolling 7 dice instead of the normal 5 with vibranium weapons. And I'm going to end up doing 1 point with that attack. And this is, injured side Cap is much more durable than healthy side Cap because of his I can do this all day ability. So that, that's probably maybe average. Maybe I should have done a little more. I'm not sure. Here's the coup de grace though. I'm going to roll an 11 die Black Ops strike. And I do have a kill token from dazing him earlier in the turn, so I'm going to be able to reroll 1 die. I did that as well on the first attack. So rolled a huge fistful of dice. Effectively at +4 because of Usurp and because of attacking Cap a second time in the same turn. After the bloody mist clears, Dark Cap is still standing, bloody and unbowed. He's got 1 stamina left, and I didn't even get the stagger on my 11 dice. I did not hit 1 wild. So unfortunately, my little gambit there, which I think the math was probably pretty fair on. It was a good chance of getting there. Didn't get to usurp him, so I don't get the victory points, and I didn't kill him, so he doesn't drop the scroll, and I didn't stagger him. So a bummer, but ultimately he's on 1 HP. Well, he was on 1 HP. Now Crossbones is going to activate, and the first thing he's going to do is he's going to patch up the Dark Captain America for 2 health. So spends 2 power, heals him for 2. And he turns his attention on my Cap, who is still on his healthy side, and strikes him with such ferocity that he's going to end up dealing 4 damage and dazes him. And you can see some of that. That's a pretty good roll. So that's enough to daze an injured or a healthy Cap. And after that, he's very powered up because that was a strike. He's got a lot of power on him from that. So he decides to use the Haymaker rule and Haymaker strike my Killmonger. who is undamaged at this point, just on his healthy side still. This is a little worrisome. Killmonger is a pretty fragile model overall. I find that that's the hardest thing when you're using Killmonger is just keeping him alive. He will generate kills for you, as his name suggests, all day long, but he's got a big target on his head, and he's not really much more durable than, say, like a Zemo. In fact, he might be less durable than a Zemo, ultimately. So, Crossbones turns his bloody gaze on my Killmonger. Haymaker strikes him and dazes him. So, pretty bloody turn. We got a whole pile of dazed characters there in the middle, mostly mine. My Doc Ock is going to strike at the imposter Doc Ock. And you can see, it's weird saying strike and seeing that much distance between them, but Ock does have the range 3 strike due to the length of his arms, which is a pretty cool rule, actually. It sometimes gives you some nice ability to put 2 attacks in a turn where you would maybe want to move up otherwise. Ultimately, did no damage. Both Ocks pick up a little bit of extra power from rolling crits, because that's a rule in his card. My Ock then attempts to... I'm sorry, he's actually striking him again. This one's going to do no damage as well. And last thing to do is to attempt to control the bomb, and this is... he's got to do this, otherwise this is a totally wasted activation. And he does it. He rolls the 3 hits. He needed 2 because of Black Panther's presence. So I've got 2 of the 3 bombs at the moment. Back to Charles. He's going to Repulsor Blast Captain Marvel, and this is not a great matchup. This is the kind of matchup I would like to hunt typically, where Danvers likes being attacked with energy and Cap likes to use his energy attacks. It's arguably his most commonly used attack. But despite her sort of ability to absorb energy, she actually takes 2 damage here. So pretty good result for Charles on that attack. And I think he's going to end up doing it again here. So pretty much they're just hurling energy at each other at very close range, hovering around the point and wailing on each other and creating a nice light show. So he's going to do it again here. And on this one, it plays out a little more kind of typically. He does no damage, and I end up generating a power for eating the energy of his attack. And here's the critical part. Iron Man's got energy defense 3, so he's going to roll 3 dice when he attempts to interact with the bomb and control it. And that is not going to do it. I'm going to pass my activation here because of how many models Charles has. So he's going to go right back to his Black Panther, strike my Ock, and that first strike is going to end up dealing 3 damage to him. Now that he's empowered, he's going to end up using Mantle the Black Panther and strike him again and just dazes Ock, who he just can't withstand the onslaught of Vibranium Claws. Now that the bomb is entirely free of enemies, because Ock doesn't count anymore, being laying on the ground, half bleeding out and dazed, he's going to attempt to control the bomb, and he easily captures it, taking no damage. Charles has got both right side bombs now, middle and right side, I guess I should say. So Danvers sees the severity of the situation, and that just, we can't let the enemy have the majority of the bombs, so she is going to end up disengaging kind of from Iron Man on the far side bomb, which we still control, and flying to the center. So she does a double move and a diffuse, and she does end up diffusing it thanks to her 4 energy defense, and Charles really only had 1 model within range, unfortunately for him. After that, she's going to use Danvers' special to throw a dumpster at Dark Cap, and he's on 1 HP and is controlling the Skrull agent, so Charles correctly decides it's time to use the Brace for Impact card and take no damage. And Charles is going to activate the Imposter Doc. He's going to advance towards this ridiculous rugby scrum we're having here in the middle of the battlefield and strike my Captain Marvel. and his roll is going to end up doing nothing. He does generate himself a power, however. He is going to then, with his, because he's used 2 actions now, a walk and a fight, or a attack action. He's going to use Ox Clutches to pull her away from the fight and throw her into the kind of small generator behind her. And that, of course, deals 1 collision damage. And it's going to, of course, destroy the little size 1 generator. And that's the end of round 2. I got my ass kicked. But Captain Marvel managed to steal the majority of the bombs. That really deals a huge blow to Charles' VP total, which on an otherwise dominant turn, which keeps me in this game, despite having 3 of my characters knocked out, or excuse me, 4 of my characters knocked out. I end up scoring 3. Charles ends up scoring 2. Now back to me. With first activation, I'm going to charge Dark Cap with Vibranium Weapons on Killmonger. So the sound of Vibranium weapons clashing against each other fills the battlefield. Ultimately, no damage is dealt. Now, at this point, his cap has 3 stamina left due to that heal that he took earlier from the patch-up. So my Killmonger is going to end up striking again. This time it's a 7-die strike due to his the rule that adds 2 dice when he attacks a guy a second time. This is going to slip through Cap's guard, dealing a minor wound of 1 damage. And ultimately, one of the reasons, or the reason I moved the Killmonger from the left to the right there with a charge was so I can use the patch-up tactics card on my Captain Marvel, who is a little ragged at this point. So he's going to end up using that card, spending 4 power from Killmonger to heal 4 damage on Captain Marvel, which puts her back to undamaged on her healthy side. So I think that was worth doing. I was hoping I could take down Cap and do it. It just didn't work out. Charles Crossbones is going to strike my Killmonger, but my Captain America steps in front of the blow and takes it on his shield for no damage. Man, Crossbones is pretty furious that his first attack didn't land. He winds up a Haymaker Overpower at Killmonger, and Cap is going to bodyguard that one as well. Now, this one, I believe I did not have enough power to do a Vibranium Shield. So, a point of damage does get through to Cap, and he ends up also getting thrown, which is one of the rules built into the Overpower. And he's going to get hurled right into that Hydra light tank there, just like it's 1944. And take a point of damage from the collision. And the last part of that attack is that Crossbones gets a place within 1 of the target he overpowered, which is why we tend to think overpower is kind of like a wrestling move or something. You know, he's right there on the follow through. Alright, so my Doc Ock is going to unleash Laser Tentacle Hell at Black Panther. Pretty big energy attack. Roll some pretty good dice, and I don't think Charles does. And I'm going to end up dealing 3 points of damage to him. And he's going to go ahead and throw Black Panther using the Ox Clutches superpower into Imposter Ock. That's going to deal 1 damage to Black Panther, and Imposter Ock does a pretty poor job of dodging and takes 2. So now that Ock has cleared the Origin Bomb on the right of enemies, he's going to go ahead and attempt to capture it, which he does. Does end up taking a point of damage because I rolled a skull in that roll. His last action is going to be a strike at Black Panther, and ends up dealing a point to him, leaving him on 1 HP. I was hoping to daze him, but ultimately that was a pretty good Doc Ock activation, so we'll take it. Sometimes Doc can be kind of swingy. It feels like sometimes he's underwhelming or then overwhelming. Back to Dark Cap. He's going to throw his shield at Killmonger. and it is going to ricochet off of Killmonger, somehow dealing no damage to him, but hitting him hard enough that it bounces off of him all the way back into my cap. There's some strange geometry on this throw. It's going to hit my cap and also end up dealing no damage. And he's going to wind up and throw it again. This time at Killmonger again, but no ricochets. But it does actually hit Killmonger pretty solidly and do 3 total damage to him. Now my Captain Marvel's going to activate, and she's going to Energy Blast Black Panther. He's on 1 health here. It is pretty critical to knock this dude into the dazed condition because he has not activated yet. It's completely absorbed by his vibranium suit and doesn't deal anything. She's going to go ahead and then use a Danvers special to throw the Dark Cap into Crossbones. That's going to deal the last point of damage to the Dark Cap and daze him. But Crossbones is going to entirely avoid the collision. A pretty good dodge roll here. Now as Dark Cap fades into oblivion, instead of dropping the Skrull Agent, he uses the Mission Objective Tactics card to hand off the Skrull Agent to Crossbones, and it's going to deny me a chance to recapture it. So really brilliant tactical move there. Perfect use of that card, and really puts me in a bind. I forgot Charles had that card, so I was pretty excited about picking that up, and it ain't happening. So Black Panther's going to unleash the tremendous amount of kinetic power he's built up in his suit with a kinetic blast, augmented with 3 additional dice and Mantle of the Black Panther into Danvers. Luckily, it's an energy attack, and her energy defense is pretty solid, and she only ends up taking 3 damage from it, which I think was pretty lucky on my part. That's a very devastating attack. 9 dice with rerolls. Charles is going to end up refraining from triggering the wild effect here because he doesn't want to damage his Doc Ock as well, so he does not trigger that to push models around away from his Black Panther. And with his second action, he is going to end up doing a strike on her. And the strike is still affected by Mantle of the Black Panther, so it's going to have full rerolls, and this is a physical defense, and it is plenty enough to daze her. So she ultimately ends up going down in a heap. My patch up earlier just made her, absorb a lot more damage this turn, which I think was probably worth doing. It's hard to say even in retrospect how that would have shook out otherwise, but we did it. And then Black Panther's last action after those 2 attacks, or last act I should say, because he's already done 2 actions, is going to be a superpower to pounce. He's going to hurl himself forward onto my Ock, which I believe would have been pretty bad for me at this point. But I end up go ahead and just burning the Brace for Impact card to take no damage. So, burn the card, spend the power. It ends up paying off for me because Black Panther cannot capture the bomb on that side. Because he has to roll 2 hits. Now back to me. Black Widow's going to strike Crossbones for a point of damage and steal a power from him using the Widow's Sting rule. I guess I should say remove a power, not steal. She doesn't get it. And then at this point I try for kind of a Hail Mary and do a mixed technique, which is against his best defense, but if I do a point of damage, I'm going to end up staggering him, which I think is going to pay off. It doesn't end up doing anything, so not necessarily worth, I guess. Back to Charles. Imposter Ock is a whirlwind of flailing metal. He's going to batter Killmonger to death with a strike. So, rip Killmonger, and turns his attention on Black Widow and kills her as well. So, not going great at this point. Those early dazes have been, some of them have been converted into kills now, and that's bad. I'm down models. And then with a whir of servos, he's going to rotate 90 degrees and throw my Ock into the front of that dump truck, dealing a point of damage to him. So back to me. I've just got Cap left, I think. Cap is going to strike Crossbones, desperate to knock loose the Skrull Agent. Crossbones is just going to shake it off, take nothing. And then Cap unleashes his best attack, which is the Shield Smash. And this is going to do actually 4 damage, but reduced down to 3 after the Inert of Pain superpower from Crossbones. And on a little bit of review of the card, we were trying to figure out what direction he has to be thrown in. There actually is no specific direction, so I end up kind of throwing him towards me. Breaks the Jersey barrier that he hits, takes a point of damage. Unfortunately, not quite enough to end up knocking him out. I think he's one point short of being dazed and dropping the Skrull Agent. Back to Charles. Iron Man over there, standing on the left side, holding it down. He's going to finally capture the Origin Bomb, and he's going to end up throwing a Repulsor Blast at Cap. And it's just going to get deflected for no damage. And he's going to do it again. Same result. No damage. Cap can do this all day. And that's our round 3. So somehow I still held the majority of the bombs, despite taking some pretty heavy casualties. That's going to score me 3 to Charles 2. But my Killmonger and Widow are dead, and all of my remaining 3 characters are on their injured side now. I'm really going to have to pull something out of my hat to last the rest of this game and end up winning. So I have first activation. My Captain Marvel goes into binary form. She's like glowing like the sun at this point with the amount of power she's got on her. She's going to throw Doc Ock, or I should say Imposter Doc Ock, into Black Panther. This is going to daze Black Panther and deal 2 damage to Ock. She then is going to turn her attention to Crossbones, who has a point or 2 of life left, and hit him with an Energy Blast. On binary form makes that Energy Blast 6 dice, and she gets full rerolls because of the rules for Energy Blast. That's his worst defense, so this should be a slam dunk. And it sure is. I rolled a whole bunch of hits, and Charles did not roll the zillion crits he would need to make that even sort of feasible. And he is going to get dazed. I decided to have him drop the Skrull Agent kind of at the furthest point possible, hoping that Charles would have to either really struggle to pick it up or just not be able to get there at all. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't pre-measure it all, but I wanted it pretty far from him. And that's going to end that attack. Now, she's got 1 action left. She's going to blast Imposter Ock with an Energy Blast. 6 dice with rerolls, as it always is. And he looks like he has 1 defense there. I'm going to deal the 2 damage needed to daze him as well. So, absolutely outstanding binary form turn. Dazed 3 guys and popped a critical objective out of 1 of them. So, back to Charles. He's going to Repulsor Blast my Cap, hoping to stop him from going to pick up the Skrull. But he's going to end up dealing no damage. And just does the exact same thing again. This time he's going to end up dealing 2 damage to the first Avenger, but not enough to knock him out of the game. Now my Cap is just going to kind of take a long step over Crossbones' sort of body there. And pick up the Skrull Agent. And since there's really nobody in attack range or anything he can do, he's going to do the smart tactical move and take some cover behind the size 3 tank. So this should block LOS to Cap from most of the models, and then even the models that can get line of sight to him, he should have cover, hopefully. And my Ock just kind of walks forward, stands on the point, and that's going to be the end of round 4. Due to the incredible Captain Marvel turn, going binary and dominating the whole battlefield, I actually end up scoring 5 points to Charles 0 here. This is a really wild game so far. I still feel like I'm really down on attrition, but because of that turn, I was able to even further get more VPs, and hopefully that points lead is going to carry me to the victory here. First activation, of this round is going to be Crossbone advancing, and he's going to do an overpower on Cap. This is going to be a pretty critical attack. Cap ultimately is going to end up using his Vibranium Shield and deflect all the damage from the attack. He will get thrown into the back of the tank, but that's only going to end up doing a point of damage to him, which leaves him with one stamina remaining. So the good guys are going to breathe a huge sigh of relief here. I think if Crossbones kills him here and picks it up, that's probably the game. Hard to say. I still have Danvers over there, but that needed to happen. Cap needed to survive that attack for sure. So good guy Ak is going to activate, and he is going to arm lasers the Black Panther, and doesn't do anything. Just gets absorbed by Vibranium armor. He's going to use Ox Clutches to pick up the Imposter Ak and throw him into Black Panther. Imposter Ak is going to take one from the collision, and Black Panther just dodges the entirety of the throw. So, got one action left. He's going to do a strike against Ak. And at this point, we're just kind of trying to build up a little bit of power and you know, put a little damage in. I don't expect this to do huge results, which is good because it doesn't. It ends up dealing 1 damage. And then he's just going to hunker down in that same spot at range 1 of the bomb, and he's just determined to hold it as long as possible. Well, Imposter Ak is going to activate and try to show me how it's done. He's going to arm laser Danvers, which is a little risky, and the risk does not pay off. He does 0 damage and ends up powering her up for 2 power because she ends up going 2 wilds. He's going to use Ox Clutches to pick her up and throw her into that dump truck. And she's going to take a point of damage. And then his last action is going to be to strike her. And that is also going to do no damage. So just more awesome binary form results. She is a monster in binary form. And then Thanos snaps my camera battery. So I'm going to have to give you guys a little bit of synopsis, just a little verbal of what occurs for the rest of the game from here. So at this point, we're in round 5. The only unactivated models on the table are my Danvers and Charles's Black Panther and his Iron Man on the left, over on the left side point. My Danvers does activate, and I think she rebinaries. No, she didn't have enough power to rebinary. She ends up dealing a little bit of damage, but not really doing anything major. Black Panther's going to capture the point on the right-hand side, the Origin Bomb. Iron Man's going to... he'd already capped the left side one, so that gives majority to Charles. He's going to fly up onto the Daily Bugle, which will give him line of sight to Cap. I believe he repulsor blast Cap with Friday AI, maybe. I think he had enough power to do that. Net result ultimately ends up that the Kree agent gets popped loose and Cap is knocked out of the game. But not close enough for Iron Man to pick it up. So because of that, Charles is going to score 3 points this turn. That's going to get him up to 7. So the score right now is 13-7 going into round 6. We end up playing it out just to see kind of what would happen, but the reality of the situation is he can only score 5 VPs in round 6. He does not end up entirely killing my team, which I think might be an auto win. We did not end up checking that. But there is a little bit more that the camera obviously didn't catch because the battery was dead here. Long story short, though, he didn't kill all my team members. I ended up winning 13-12. So I essentially ended up carrying the same score the last 2 rounds of the game, but I ended up winning on that early lead I built. Attritionally, he absolutely stomped the shit out of me. I just had no answer for him all game. Somehow managed to steal a win just by banking a lot of EPs early on. So really awesome game, Charles. I think I stole that one from you, but it was really good to get you on the stream or on the YouTube channel, and we'll do it again sometime soon for sure. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. This has been our 4th video. So I think we're getting a little more polished at this, but we still have some stuff we want to add, and we have a few more ideas in the pot. My primary concern now is just getting as many videos recorded and edited and kind of, built up in the can, so I can get a couple weeks ahead, and then I can start to work on some other stuff that isn't just editing, adding more graphics, doing some different audio stuff, things like that. As always, we welcome you any kind of comments in the YouTube or Facebook, things like that. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks. Like and subscribe.